Yes, hello there. Glad to have you join me on the weekend edition of Safiya Breakfast Show. It is the Saturday's edition of the Breakfast Show. This is where we bring to you highlights of interviews that made our lineup during the week. Yes, yesterday was one of the holy days, which is Fridays of the holy month for Christians. It was Good Friday, and I want to assume that many Christians took the time out to visit churches, to pray for the peace of Nigeria, and also to connect with the essence of the Good Friday, a day Jesus Christ died on the cross of Calvary for the redemption of man. And for he so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believe in him would not perish but have everlasting life. And that life was guaranteed with his resurrection on Easter Day, which is going to be tomorrow. So we started the count after his death yesterday, making it day 1. Today is day 2. On day 3, Jesus Christ resurrected. So it makes it a very memorable moment and a joyous one for every Christian across the globe. Good to see you and good to have you join me on the weekend edition. My name is Aaron Isaac. Yes, first, let's quickly remind ourselves of what today is all about. Today is the 3rd day of the month of April. Just like yesterday, we started a count in the month of April, and today is the 3rd day of the month. And while you enjoy your public holiday, I hope you do that responsibly also. Take your time to really take out those burnout, wear out, and replace them with some positive energy. It's going to help you a long way. Yes, today is the 3rd, and we travel to the United States of America to find out what happened in that country in 1963. Civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the mountaintop speech to a rally of striking sanitation workers in Mississippi, Tennessee, less than 24 hours before he was assassinated. We remember this strong voice that moved for the emancipation of not just only the black race, but every human being. If you are human, he also spoke for the liberation of everyone. Yes, of course. Let's speak about what to expect on the program today. Would feature interviews that made the lineup, just as I said, during the week. Coming up today, we'll bring you the interview we had with Dr. Lionel Rawlins, Assistant Vice President, Security and Safety at American University, where he talked about Nigeria's security challenges. We're, of course, going to bring the interview we had on the demand for electoral reform of the process and also of some of the laws in the nation. Yes, one thing that stole the headline, last week, or during the week rather, was the comment made by Nigeria's former Vice President, Atiku Abubakar, about the state of the nation. We broke that into 2 parts. We looked at the political implication of that statement and how it's polarizing Nigerians, making everyone to take to certain views, whether it's healthy or not healthy. The bottom line is, with the position you stand to defend, comes top for you. But for us, we believe that Nigerians need to unify beyond their political clinages and also think about the growth of the Nigerian state. We also talked about some of the solutions he preferred for the nation's economy. All of this will be coming up on the show today. I hope you stick around to find out what I have to offer. Safiya returns in a short while. Thank you so very much for staying with me on the weekend edition of Safiya Breakfast Show. To begin with, let's talk about security. Nigeria is faced with multi-dimensional security challenges. Of course, if you go by count, you would relate to situations happening in the Northeast, the terrorism in the Northeast. You also speak to the banditry activity in the Northwest. We can also speak about the growing volume or incidences of court clashes in other parts of the country. Kidnapping is another thing for us to factor in. And then we also speak about government commitment towards resolving this growing insecurity and how positive this commitment are. Whether it is just a mere statement without a bite of action, or it's just, these are statements that actually have the bite of action. but the effort put towards combating the growing insecurity is more than we can think about. Well, we brought in our go-to man on security issues, Dr. Lionel Rawlins, Assistant Vice President, Security and Safety at American University, to look at these issues and see what we can come around with. And this is what he shared with us on the program. He's gone Mardi and
he begins to come up with so many local dialects.
Uber Hildi Margi.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be Lapia.
Interesting.
But you were close. You were close.
So,
you're good. You know your stuff.
I'm a multilingual person.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. No, you are lingual. You're lingual, not multi. Don't get that to your head. It's a pleasure once again to have you join us.
Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Lionel Rawlins, I think we have a lot of troubling issues, particularly one bordering around security in Nigeria. And it appears we have just fewer solutions to a much bigger problem. Let me have you, speak to these issues as it is, particularly with the current trend that is coming in from the southwest. We're talking about the activities of cultists has been reported in some states in Nigeria, where some, have died and some have been arrested, and there's a lot of, development brewing around the issue of cult activities in that region. Give us a sense of where we're heading to currently in terms of understanding the security management in Nigeria.
Well, it's a good one to start off with. Your country is in turmoil, and your country has a serious issue with insecurity. And when you think one thing is taken care of, something else pops up. So we had a problem with Boko Haram. No one even talks about Boko Haram anymore as much. We're talking about bandits and banditry. Then was kidnapping. Now you have cults and cultism. It never went away, by the way. It was always there. And now you have a series of arrests where the people who were arrested were some people say they're IPOB, some say they're not. But now we have some militant groups, some secessionists, are now becoming really active. And you will see more of this, because according to theory, whenever things are going bad people will take advantage of that opportunity to make it worse. It's a theory, and it's true, and it works. Because whenever things are going bad, that is the time to take advantage of the vulnerabilities of the country.
Can this saying come alive, looking at the current precarious situation Nigeria is going through, that it will only get worse for it to get better? Do you see that, coming alive anytime soon with Nigeria's own situation?
Oh yes, it's happening now. It's an old saying, again, that is a prophecy. You have to hit the ground
rock bottom
before you can come up again. That's why when you drop the ball, it hit the ground, it bounce up. You must go down. You must hit rock bottom for it to come back up. It's just the way the laws of human nature and physics. You must bounce to come back up. You hit the ground and you come up running. It's going to be better for Nigeria in the long run. I envision, though, that pretty soon the security forces, the new security chiefs, they have repositioned themselves, or I should say they are repositioning themselves for some major onslaught that they plan to carry out within the next month or so. And I think that when they do that, we will see a tremendous decrease in the amount of criminal activities. Not finishing it, it's not going to end, but it'll be a significant reduction.
But how decisive should we do this? Because we've always had an issue around politicizing the security activity that we have in the country. Now I'm talking about cultists and how things are beginning to unfold. Our fears are how it's going to escalate into other states of the Nigerian country. How do we begin to deal with all of these issues?
Well, right now, you should have nipped this in the bud a long time ago. It's not. So what we need to do now is find a preventive, I should say, not preemptive, but some remedial action is a better word. It's gone too far. You've lost the opportunity and the time to prevent it from taking off. It's already taken off. It's now for each state to protect themselves. The governor of Nasarawa For example, you know what he did when he found out that his neighbors on the east, the west, and the north were having some issues with kidnapping and banditry. What did he do? He called an emergency meeting, bring an emergency security council together. And he started to barricade his state so that nobody can come in and nobody can go out without you being seen. That was good thinking. That is what we need to do all around now before it starts escalating from other states into our states or other states.
But do you see the government and strategic players having an understanding of how to go about de-escalating these current challenges that Nigeria is faced with? Looking at the solutions, the amount of solutions that have been thrown into the problem over the years, do you make sense around these solutions has been viable enough in handling the matter?
In the beginning, people gave a lot of solutions, and there were great solutions. Nobody paid attention to them. They just felt as if this is something that people, they put it on the side. If they had listened to the solutions that were given by people years ago, we wouldn't be in these situations now. Now we're searching for solutions, but the solutions that we're looking for, the situation is so terrible that we cannot come up with a functioning solution. This is the solutions we need is going to be multi-pronged. It's like a hydra-headed snake of solutions that we will need, because it's now insurgency, it's banditry, it's kidnapping, it's militancy, it's cultism, it's robbery, it's rape. You see the amount of problem?
Of these issues as they are and the concerns. Take for instance, if we want to reference Boko Haram, the terrorist activities in Northeast is completely different from the bandits activities in the Northwest, and how the cultists operate again is completely different. It's a different ball game, and how the kidnappers also work is a completely different ball game. Is it because of the many phases these attacks are coming in, and by different groups that are not having anything in common? That is why we require a multifaceted phase or approach towards resolving the problem.
Very well said. Most of them have nothing in common. They're all fighting for their own cause. What are the militants fighting for? Their own cause. Boko Haram fighting for their own cause. The bandits are fighting for their own cause, and most of, I know people say it's this and that, but it's about money. They're just criminals. Cultists, kidnappers, all of them, they have their own modus operandi. The way that a kidnapper will function is different to the way a cultist would function, and it's different from the way Boko Haram will function. Boko Haram and the bandits are functioning almost the same way, because somehow the Boko Haram insurgency is somehow in interplay with the bandits. They're using the same modus operandi, the same theories, the same ways of mores of getting things done. The kidnapping of school children, the kidnapping of school boys. Right now we have a problem again with the forest mechanization students. They're still there. They're asking for 1 billion to release these people. 1 billion. Who's going to give 1 billion? No one is going to give 1 billion. So the parents are upset and they want their children back, and everybody's watching. Why is it these children have not been returned? There's a reason for that, because they are adults. They are 26, 27 years old. It's different from a 14, 15, 16-year-old boy or girl. And that is why you see the kidnapping of children is the premier activity of bandits. So
if you mean that there's a level of empathy that can be thrown to these two different scenarios. If it's kids, the empathy might be different from adults.
Exactly, and the kidnappers and the bandits and Boko Haram, they know that if you kidnap school children, the money will be paid regardless. If you kidnap school children, you get notoriety. Your name go on the news all over the world. If you kidnap school children, you can use those school children to plant bombs as suicide bombers. You can use those school children to be used as spies. If you kidnap school children, it goes with the old adage, Western education is bad. Also, if you kidnap school children, the people who they prefer to kidnap are girls, so they can be sexually abused, so they can be married off or used as domestic help. And also, finally on that one, school children, they don't fight back. They're too cowardly, and they will carry out every order you give them.
You did talk about how we're in turmoil already, and how we are already battling with these multifaceted security issues that we're faced with. What will happen, or what solutions? You also mentioned how we had solutions in the past that brought about tackling insecurity. What will be the turnaround if we eventually go back to the drawing board and pick up some of the solutions that were presented by experts in making sure that we get things working right?
Okay, you hear them talking about kinetic and non-kinetic force. Mm-hmm. You're going to have both of them. As we say in the U.S., the carrot and the stick. You know, we'll beat you, but we'll feed you. You cannot end this, whatever is going on with insecurity, just by bullets and guns. You have to have another solution. It's like you're going to go, they gave those people a quit order to vacate the forest.
Yes.
Okay? So where do they go? How can you give somebody an order to quit without, you can't tell somebody you cannot go down that street anymore. But you live on that street, so where do you go? You must have an alternative. So if you tell those people who live in the forest, you must vacate that area, where will those people go? Secondly, some of those people who are in the forest, not all of them are criminals and bandits. Some of them have been living there for hundreds of years. They were born there, the family lived there, they know nothing about the lowlands or the city. All they know is forest. They know about farming and herding. That's it. What are you going to do with those people who for 200 years been living in the forest? You're going to take them in the city? I want people to consider critical thinking. Don't just make statements. Say you need to leave and vacate and go where? Secondly, what do you do? What do you do with them? Do you give them jobs when you kick them out of the forest?
So it appears you have a lot of questions surrounding the logic behind that particular pronouncement.
You have to study things logically. We call it critical thinking. You don't just make a statement without looking at the ramifications and what's going to happen as a result of that action. For every action, there's a reaction. So if you say, everybody in the forest vacate, otherwise we're going to send the military in and we'll deal with you ruthlessly. Yeah, it's good. But you're going to kill innocent people who knows nothing about banditry, just living there.
At this point, are you saying the government is not critical enough in making some of these decisions?
I don't know if they're not, I don't know who is advising them, or maybe they just talk strong and forcefully to make it sound we're bad. But you got to make sure, you got to think of things. It's like when they said no more open grazing. As of today, no more open grazing. If you are from Adamawa State and you were down in Oyo State with your cows, how will you get your cows back here? You got to figure things out. Give them a timeline, you know. Say, all of you need to clear the forest by June. If you're still in the forest by June, we will do this. Those of you who need help, we will help you. We will relocate you. We will do this for you. We will give you homes. We will give you an area of land where you can live in peace. If you are of this group, this tribe, you will live over there. Some will live over. You got to start figuring these things out rather than just making bold statements.
Yeah, sequel to this issue of, you know, the vacate order, there's this also, you know, pressing demand, especially on the presidency, to have a talk with the bandit. This was tried with, you know, the insurgents in northeast Nigeria, and very little can be said about that. Though we say talk is cheap, but taking the right action, you know, is pretty expensive. In this instance, would you be among one of those who would also buy into the demand for the government to really have a talk with you know, the bandits? And if there were to be a talk, what would you suggest the talk should be about?
Listen, what you do, you go in and you use kinetic force. You go in and you kill as many of them as you can. At some point, they will put their hands up in the air. I know, I've been to war. I know it's done. When they realize that their numbers are being depleted because they've been killed, at some point, somebody's going to say, enough is enough. Let us talk. Okay. Then you talk to them from a position of power and strength. And then you tell them what you want to tell them. And what you're going to tell them is not that we're going to let you go, because you've already raped women, you have killed people, you have destroyed homes, communities, families. Are we going to just let you walk away like that? No, we can't do that. You're going to have to serve some time in prison. Or there's something you must do for recompense. There's something you must give for the damage you have done. You can't just kill all these people and then, just like some governor said, just turn in your AK-47 or your den gun and then walk away.
Why that remains a revolving issue and a revolving issue? How about the big talk around, state policing? It's been an issue that we've been talking about for a pretty long time. It is not yet there, but we've seen, state government instituting hunters, vigilante, which is almost equivalent to the status of the state police to help the federal mites in their states in addressing this issue of insecurity. How about that as a conversation? Do you think Nigeria is due and it's ripe for state policing right now?
Of course. I again, a lot of people meet me and tell me, I'm not so sure about state police because governors in the past have used them.
But is it a recipe to the current problem?
Yes, it is. And it can be done and should be done judiciously and with speed. Because if you want it done, do it now. Don't wait for another 5 years. Things are going to just deteriorate and get worse. If you had state policing right now, all the problems that's going on in some of those states, it wouldn't be. And by the way, it must be done properly. It must be implemented properly. And I do not think that the people who are talking about it know how it should be implemented. It's not just about bringing in the community leaders. Yes, that's a part of it. But it's also about bringing the police into the community and giving them homes in the community. If you had a community, if you live in Shagari, you have put 20 policemen in Shagari, give them homes in Shagari. Because they will be able to live in the community and they will defend and protect the community. They too will know what's going on.
So are we seeing the service chiefs also taking a bold step in regards to tackling the insecurity?
Yes, the security chiefs are repositioning right now. They're doing what they have to do. Actually, we can see a little bit of results. The last times that there was some attack on certain places, the military was able to respond instantaneously and to prevent some attacks from taking place. That sluggishness that was taking place in the past is gone. So they're now doing what they're supposed to do, and I think that's what Nigeria needs now.
Okay, that's a viewpoint shared by Dr. Lionel Rawlins, Assistant Vice President of Security and Safety at American University of Nigeria. Now, let's turn our attention to something else, something that is brewing. Because if we say the discussion, the talk about around the 2023 election is not real, I think we'll be deceiving ourselves. Yes, there's much talk around the 2023 elections. And INEC is also leading the pack with new developments to usher, or preparatory rather, to the 2023 elections. We hear of online voter registration to ease the process of the true registration itself. We're hearing of other measures that INEC is proposing, such as trying to go electronic with the elections in 2023. But beyond all of these, there are other demands that Nigerians are clamoring for, such as the electronic adoption of elections result, and also speak about the true independence of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Femi, our guest on the program, was around, and he's an election expert, and this is a thought he shared on this particular concern for ahead of 2023 general elections. Thank you so very much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Thank you so very much. Yes, we're seeing a lot of development emerging. We talk about the online e-registration for new voters to expedite the process for INEC to go about the registration. It's a pre-registration platform, and we are hearing conversation also around new polling units that will be set up preparatory to the 2023 elections. These are some few demands, as there is concerning also demands for some amendment, so some aspect of the Electoral Act. Give me what you make of these new development and how you think this new development would trigger a possible change and a positive change for that one ahead of the 2023 general elections.
See, INEC has the responsibility to review polling units periodically because the population is growing.
Okay.
And when you look at some of the polling units, instead of having maximum of 1,000, you have about more than that. And that is why during the 2019 general election, we have to operate on the basis of voting points. In some units where the total number of the registered voters have exceeded 1,000, a polling point has been established, voting point has been established. In some, there are more than one, up to 2 or 3. So in this regard, INEC is supposed to review periodically this location of polling units. Nevertheless, there are also upgrowing locations, an area that is developing, that hitherto has been a forest or a desert.
Yeah.
Now, township is growing up there.
Okay.
And in population of where we have up to 1,000 Nigeria electorates, we are supposed to have a polling unit there so that they don't travel far on election day.
So but there's this contention, over and about the issue of these particular new polling units. One obvious reasons people have used oftentimes to converse why this is a process that is filled with a lot of faults is that we do not have accurate data that will point to us that yes, we have a growing community, we have a growing population, therefore the need for us to have a new polling unit in these areas. What do you make of these particular concerns?
Okay, I was actually coming to that. I've started to bring about the rationale behind additional polling units. Doing that is legitimate and legal. However, the process can be abused. One, we don't have data. INEC has no current data of the total numbers of registered voters. Some people died, some people relocated, and so on and so forth. And they have not been able to update that. So when you claim in a particular area we have 2,000 people, maybe actually we have less than that. Then when you are creating a new voting centers, it can lead to rigging and manipulation in future if proper care is not taken. And that is why the political parties have to be on their toes. They must be actively participating. It is only when INEC want to create additional constituency that they need constitutional amendment. But creating additional voting centers, polling units, or voting points, they don't need any constitutional amendment to that. And that process can be abused.
Speaking to lack of data, don't you think this is a huge challenge? Because we know that the way we are today, we need data in order to make up some of the maps in really, some of the maps we really need to fill, especially in creating new polling units.
And the INEC is very slack on that, because I believe immediately the 2019 general election is over, they could have used their time to look continuously, because legislation is continuous. They could have used that data to verify. There's nothing wrong in this year. Ask anybody that is alive go to your polling unit and authenticate that you are alive.
That's more like a review.
Like you validate
your presence.
Okay.
And not until when that one is done, if INEC decided to create more polling units, it may lead to what we know in political arena as gerrymandering.
Yes.
That will give advantages to certain political party at the expense of the other.
So how do we begin to address this? Because it's important we deal with all of these issues before we get to the heart of what we really want to do in creating new polling units.
It depends on INEC. We cannot force them. INEC know this better than anybody. But are they willing to do? That is the issue. The right thing INEC is supposed to do is that 2 years or 1.5 years before general election, ask anybody that is having a PVC, come out and validate. It is only those who validated that will qualify. Then those that have no PVC can be registered, or those who transfer can be given from EC A1. They will just fill it. In 10 minutes you transfer the data and you collect the old PVC, give them new one.
I know there was a lot of contention when INEC said there were about 89 registered voters for the 2019 election.
Yeah.
So many observers did say that that number was not a true reflection of actual voters that were, valid voters as of the year the election were conducted in Nigeria. But that's, subject to a lot of debate. Let's still stay to the issue of, this creation of new polling unit. You did make mention of the fact that political parties also should be part of the process to observe and also give their inputs in this regard. Why do you think it is important and imperative for political parties to also follow the process?
The political parties are stakeholders. They are registered political parties recognized in Nigeria. And anything that concerns election, even pre-election, the political party and INEC normally have interactive sessions, have been there severally.
Okay.
So in this regard, any activities of INEC that borders on creation of additional polling units, they are supposed to carry along the political parties, having their representative to make sure that the right things is done, or else there is going to be manipulation.
Okay, well, Mr. Femi, before the 2019 election, we were very optimistic that the president is going to append his signature, to certain amendments to the Electoral Act, but that did not happen until we were done with the election. Even as we speak, we're still here to see those, amendments come to life. What are your fears going into the 2023 elections if we had issues of paramount concern before the 2019 elections that necessitated the need for us to have an amendment to the Electoral Act that failed to see the light of the day? Aren't you really worried that we might not still see these amendments happen, ahead of from 2023?
It's okay. The amendment that was done by the 8th Assembly is a good one, because that amendment to the Electoral Act settled so many issues. For example, the Kogi state governor, according to the Electoral Act, is not supposed to be a governor because he did not participate in that election in Kogi. He has no registered voter to vote. But because of the death of Audu, instead for the continuation of the deputy governor, the party said they have a candidate and that is why he's there. That is number one. Number two, the issue of voting whereby you have to use this card reader is not legitimated. Card reader is illegal.
It's not, yeah, exactly.
As I'm talking to you now, card reader is just an official window dressing because he has no legal backing. We are only using it maybe by INEC regulations. That electoral acts have legitimatized card reader so that any result that is not attached with the card reader, then that election is void, non and void.
Okay.
But you can see there are so many areas where multiple thumbprints took place and there was no proper accreditation, and they fill so many incident forms And yet the announcement was made of that result. But if that electoral act has been signed, then there will be no issue of saying no usage of card reader. Card reader as of now is an illegal property.
Now, speaking to some of the gaps that we really need to fill in before the next general elections come 2023, what are some of those observations that you think INEC should really work in making sure that we get a good electoral process?
INEC has been unable to control underage voting. It took place everywhere. And I think what INEC should do, there is still time. INEC can within 1 year link everybody with PVC with NIN. When you link the two, the true picture of somebody's age is there. You'll be able to know who are Nigerians and who are not Nigerians. Because there is likelihood that a state that are bordering with foreign maybe countries can easily bring in people to come and register and go back. During election they come in and vote and go back. But when you linked NIN with PVC, we have little problem. And the issue of underage voting is permanently settled.
So why is taking INEC this long for them to address some of these sensitive issues? Because we see them as an umpire and as an independent body, but we still have them falling victim of so many issues that I think should be dealt with. What do you think is largely responsible for this?
It depends on the political will of our political leaders. If the political leader wishes to allow INEC to be independent, it is possible. But at times it is going to be to their own disadvantages. And that is why they don't allow INEC to be so independent per se. Because there are always political interference.
So there's a lot of arm string.
Yes, in 2003, I was INEC collation officer. As at that time, things were done orderly. From the collation centers, you are not allowed to pick calls, you are not allowed to divert to anywhere. You and your security agents will go directly to the collation center and you submit the register, and the agents of other parties will bring to their own collation or supervisor, and everything will be in order. But in this round, you see, even on TV, we see people who are on the collation centers receiving calls, making calls, and they will be telling you that some INEC, what do you call it, adults, professors are not around. And that is what caused one professor problem in Akwa Ibom. Exactly. It was jail. Section 1231 of Electoral Act forbid dereliction of duty.
Now, what does that amount to? That, conviction of that professor who took part in the election. Already we know that the result is already valid, and his conviction does not really affect the position of that result. What does that really speak to?
It's okay. What happened is that what do you call it, is that the process has protected the politician. It is the professor now that is going into prison.
Okay.
Why the politician who contested the election, in whom the election was favored, is free, moving free.
Okay, let me still drag you back to the Electoral Act, because it's of paramount importance that we speak of it, particularly when you try to follow what happened before the 2019 election. One of the key points that Electoral Act was pushing for, canvassing for, was electronic transmission of results. And you saw how that was a major issue during the election tribunal, whether at state level or at national level. How important is it for us to, think out this and approve this amendment to capture in the transmission of results electronically?
It's okay. That electoral act that was not signed provide for electronic transmission of results.
Sure.
But the politician would not like that to be. And that was why, when it is electronics, there's limitation as to how you can manipulate. But when it is handwritten, and some of these results that were read over the air, they are not written by those professors. That is why a professor cannot read figure that is written by him. Do you agree it is possible? It was just because the handwriting was not his, so he cannot read. the figure. And that is why we have problem, and one of them was jail. It's just one out of many.
But doesn't it, serve as a point of reference, particularly in terms of how we commit resources to the electoral process itself, taking into account the issue of card reader. One of its fundamental functions is for you to transmit this resource electronically. But unfortunately, we're here to achieve that with the backing of the law. Isn't it not counterproductive to the essence of why it was brought in the first place?
It's okay. What will happen is now is that the issue of card reader will be settled by 2023 election, because we are now going to electronic voting, which will not allow for manual written of result. You only print out from the machine and share to all those that are stakeholders. Then you go to the next level of collation. That one will be done again to the final stages of declaration of result. If that is done, then we are done with the falsification of result.
Okay.
That is the only hope.
But from your view, do you think the conversation is good enough to trigger certain changes in the electoral process in Nigeria ahead of 2023? Do you think it's good enough?
The leadership of INEC, I've said this severally, even during the 2019 general election, is compromising. And that was why we have the highest number of electoral litigations, over 900 cases against INEC just in one election. During Jega, we have less than 200 throughout Nigeria. But in just one, it has moved almost 5 times. So it tells on the credibility of the head of the INEC, because if they are not compromising, there's no reason for litigations.
Okay, Mr. Femi Adelero, let's just leave it at that. I know there are a whole lot of new issues and development that will emerge. We need for us to, have you come in and join us on the conversation. But in the meantime, thank you so very much for the time spared.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for going on the program.
Sister. Thank you.
And we also thank you too. Thank you so very much for staying with me on Safiya Breakfast Show this lovely Saturday morning. Yes, one leading talking point that broke Nigeria into factions, divide, was a comment made by Nigeria's former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, where he spoke about the state of the nation and what Nigeria needs to do, particularly in the aspect of resolving the growing unemployment in the nation. That's why we are aggrieved of abiding things that are happening and the growing unemployment in Nigeria. Yes, there's no doubt that the current situation around insecurity is something for us to bother about. And so why people took to different opinion and reactions and counter-reactions over and about what the former vice president said, we felt like it would be fair enough for us to build a conversation around it, especially looking at the viewpoints shared by oppositions in this country that are positive towards developing the nations, without actually criticizing such viewpoints. Sunday Wigera, he is a legal practitioner. He joined us on this conversation in the program, and this is his thoughts as shared.
Thank you most sincerely for having you on the show today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure being here.
Now, this is not the first time where we've seen a prominent citizen of the country of Nigeria, speaks regarding certain ills that's happening in the country without having a knock or a counter position from the presidency. Remember, the former President Olusegun Obasanjo also spoke time without number concerning certain ills in this administration and still received a kind of a backlash from the presidency. And now looking at the statement credited to the former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar regarding the level of unemployment in the country and how the country itself is slipping gradually into a failed state, also generated a lot of concerns. Now, is it that a ruling government in Nigeria has never or does not have in any way a room, for criticism coming from someone who may not necessarily be a member of the ruling party?
Well, For a start, it is a sad commentary that a nation like ours is bestowed responsibilities on people who regard it as an ordained service, that they are beyond reproach, you know. And it goes down to show that a lot is fundamentally wrong with the system. Every government must be ready to take criticism, because in the voice of the critic, there are lots that you learn from, even if his criticism is baseless. You gain a lot. And people in government must learn to compose themselves. When people are criticizing the government, learn to watch and study. You don't just go into attacking persons. Even if their criticism is baseless, give them the benefit of doubt. They have the right to express their grievances.
But of course, this is not the first time we've seen that happen. Even when PDP was in power, 16 years ruled in Nigeria.
I am not talking about PDP or APC.
Yeah, sure.
I'm talking about a government.
I'm trying to make a point here. Even when PDP was in power, you know, we've had a certain criticism coming from different quarters, and yet reaction, spontaneous reaction of sort. We've seen where even President Olusegun Obasanjo during his time, you know, criticized a prominent musician in Nigeria when he sang a particular song that I may not be able to give the lyrics for censorship here on the show. But how can we separate politics, politics as it is in its context, you know, from governance when it comes to criticism? Because it seems the ruling, the administration, whether this administration or previous administrations, you know, are so much preoccupied with, you know, political positions as the ruling party than governing the country.
Well, it is always imperative for people, most especially people outside of the government, to learn to draw a distinction between governance and politics. Because some people actually, they criticize without basis. They want to distract a government because they are not part of it, seemingly. But the moment elections are over and a leader emerges, it is incumbent on people, whether from the opposition or within the government, to rally around the government. Because if the government fails, the people who are in the opposition and who are in the government themselves, they stand to bear the brunt. So it is incumbent on everyone to draw a line between politicking and governance. Aside that, it is incumbent on every patriot to voice out. You may not necessarily come out to praise the government for doing its job. You know, you can decide to keep quiet. But when a government is derailing, it is incumbent on everyone, both within and outside, to draw the attention of the state actors to the fact that these things are going wrong, and there is the need for us to remain focused, to remain on track, and we believe this is the right way to do that. And that should also be appreciated by those in government. You made mention of the fact that the messenger was attacked and the message was left unattended to. It is wrong. That shows clearly that the government is clueless, where you ignore the message and you attack the messenger. What is necessary, what is important, is the message, not the messenger. You may not even, if you don't like the messenger, you may not appreciate him for giving you free consultancy.
Yeah. In that aspect, because when we talk about drawing a line between the politics and governance is always an issue, especially when you have a ruling party and someone that is outside there that is not from the party talking, like the call for let's help Nigeria. You know, we need to come together, call from the former vice president, and we have Femi replying and responding, saying that he is not the person that's supposed to talk about that. Because in most cases, you hear people say they were in government before, and what did they do? So in that, how can we, as a people, come together and said, we need to understand, we need to put aside politicking and governance so that we can have a distinctive line between those two?
It was wrong for Femi, with all due respect, additional, to castigate the former vice president that he is not the appropriate person to advise the government, having been in government before now, and even going ahead to say, what did they do? It was wrong of him, because the appropriate person to say, oh, the person that is in a better position, advantage position to advise the government is the former vice president, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. He was there, assuming but not considering they made mistakes or they did not do anything. He had a hands-on experience, you know, and he wouldn't want to keep quiet because he felt, or they felt, now every other person that is there should also fail. That is wrong.
But do you think it takes the bold and courageous in Nigeria to criticize this administration?
Of course.
Because I asked this question, because I've seen where even members of the ruling party, you know, remember one of the aides of Ganduje who spoke about the lackadaisical approach of this administration to the fight against insecurity in Nigeria, and he was fired. And even before he was fired, he was whisked away by the DSS after some time. You know, only God knows the reason for his whisking away. But does it take courage and boldness, or should one first of all occupy a particular position of prominence in the country before you are able to criticize the government?
It really takes courage for one to criticize the government at the center now. The reason being that the moment you set out to criticize the government constructively, they will take it that you are anti-government, and they will look for one thing or the other to hold against you, to portray you as someone that is not qualified to criticize the government in any way. And that is wrong. The government is trying to profile people that are coming out. We are all Nigerians. We have stake in this country, and there are people that are having greater stake in this country than the others, whether we admit that or not. And former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is one. He believes that he owes a lot to Nigeria because Nigeria gave him a lot. So it is incumbent on him to address just any government, not necessarily the government in place. Because one, people don't know. There are lots of people that are keeping quiet, and people think they are keeping quiet because they are in government. No. Or they are friends to the government. No. When you have an opportunity to address the driver in a government directly, you know, you need not to go to the press to tell the world that this is how you feel. But where you address repeatedly, you advise repeatedly, and that was not taken, and people felt, why are you quiet? You owe yourself a duty also to come out and let the world know that this is your position on this issue, so that posterity will judge you right in the course of time.
So now, how do we differentiate governance and politicking? Because it's always an issue today in Nigeria where you have, like, they work hand in hand. You know, anything our leader said is either looking at is that if it is religious or it is political. We don't get to see the issue straight at issue. So how can we, as a nation, put difference in this?
Well, it boils down to how the government handles its affairs. There would always be that issue. So most of these issues are perception, you know. So the government must put in place measures to manage perception. That is fundamental. So if the government itself is making every effort not to politicize its actions, it dampens the politicking issue, and people get to realize the distinction and they toe the line. But when the government itself is running its affairs with political colors, definitely it is cutting a lot of issues. So when you are in government, learn to be less political, learn to be proactive, learn to be focused, you know, never allow yourself to be distracted, learn to listen. People will criticize, but learn to be less combative, you know. At times you just keep quiet. People say a lot of things and you pick the salient points in their critique and make good use of them. Those that just by the way, throw them and keep moving. And then you don't run a government by propaganda. That is very fundamental.
But is it not obvious and substantiated that the rate of unemployment in Nigeria is an issue?
It is more than an issue. In fact, let me be frank with you. The figures that the Nigerian, the National Bureau of Statistics is reeling out, I have a lot of doubt about it because it is an understatement.
It could be more than that.
It is more than that.
So could this be that this administration is not in terms, you know, with reality on ground?
Certainly, without doubt. Without doubt. That is not even contentious. The government clearly has alienated itself from the people, and they are not ready to listen and take corrections. And let me tell you, we have two monsters confronting us as a people and as a nation, that no serious government will fold its arms and watch these monsters roaming around freely in the society.
What are those monsters?
The monstrosity of unemployment and poverty at the same time.
Which of course is entangled.
Yes. So this government must sit up. They are reeling figures that we are taking 100 million people out of poverty in so years. That is not correct.
But
people every day are losing jobs. People every day are getting into the carried away by the tide of poverty.
And when a citizen speaks, it becomes a problem.
It becomes an issue.
Okay, let me take you back to what you said earlier. We've seen where oppositions, where citizens, first of all, are viewed as oppositions because they are not part of the ruling party. So if you're not part of the ruling party, you should not speak in this country. Is that what we are seeing now?
Yes, that is what we are seeing.
Does it mean that an opposition party does not play a very critical role to the ruling party?
As far as the state actors in the center, by their attitude, by their actions, you know, by their body language, you get to realize that they are just short of saying, shut up. Okay. You were there, you had your time, it is our time. wait for your time if it will ever come. But for now, we are in charge. Rightly or wrongly, take what we do or find another country. And this is most unfortunate.
So in that aspect, because when you talk about unemployment, poverty, and he also said in a statement, in a situation where Nigeria's world headquarters for extreme poverty, the world capital for out-of-school children, and the nation with the highest unemployment rate on earth. I don't know where he said on earth. So how bad is this? Because when we talk about out-of-school children, we have the highest number of out-of-school children. That we also have poverty at the other hand. So, and here we're saying that Nigeria is the unemployed, the most or worst unemployed country in the world. So how can we say, or how bad is this situation today in Nigeria?
Well, the truth of the matter is you don't just feel poverty now. You touch it. You see it. It is everywhere. It's pervasive.
So it's closer to the people than...
In fact, it is in the midst of people. People are just wearing poverty like clothes. Now, it is everywhere. You see people are aggressive. It is poverty. You see people have no cherished values. It is poverty. People don't live by rules now. They live by instincts. It is poverty. You know, it is something that has destroyed everything. Everything in us. People are stealing, you know, because people are afraid of poverty. When you are given responsibilities, you abuse that. It is as a result of poverty. And when you talk about children out of school, you know, there are children that are out of school officially, and there are children that are out of school unofficially. When schools are being closed as a result of security challenge, you know what that means. There are lots and lots of issues that we need to talk and address in this country.
You see, I like us to kind of stick to this position that the critics or the position of one who stands as an opposition to the ruling party. I'm not trying to, I try to juxtapose it during the PDP regimes. Is it that is a system, you know, in Nigeria that there is no respect for constructive criticism? You know, this doesn't only happen because the APC is in power. It also happened when the PDP was in power too. You know, how do we break this jinx?
It is all about our ways of life, and I think that is something that should be addressed at the family level. From the beginning at the family level, and then institutionally. You find out that the impunity is becoming institutionalized. You cannot take criticism from your subordinates. You don't even give them room to sit down with them. They are afraid of even voicing out that, sir, here you are wrong, this is what you ought to have done, you've not done this, this is the way to do these things.
How can we get that straight? That is the issue. How can we get that? Because in every governance, whether it's PDP, APC, ABGA, whatsoever party, in fact, not even that, even in offices, we have where the younger employee cannot address or talk to his boss saying that what we are doing in this aspect is wrong. We need to do it this way because everybody is scared. Everybody is scared of the. We have examples where the commissioner, they said they are scared of the governor, whether the governor is doing it right or wrong. He's just because he is the governor, he's in charge. So because he's the head, he's in charge. So how can we get it right to make all these things straight?
Well, it is first and foremost, like I said from the beginning, it is about our upbringing. When someone gives you a responsibility, don't go by perception. You have access to him. Get to him, whether he will take it or not, tell him the truth. You have discharged yourself of whatever responsibility that will fall on you as per telling him what is. Now, if you say you are not going to tell, for an example, the governor the truth because you are afraid, then are you helping him? Are you helping the system? Let's assume, without considering, that if you tell him the truth, you lose your job.
Yeah.
And so what?
So criticism shouldn't just come from an opposition party.
Yes.
It should also come from
you should learn to tell whoever you are working with the truth. But you should also learn to mind your language.
That's right.
You don't just come and I could remember a lesson I learned in secondary school when we were having this Christian religious studies class lesson. The late Reverend Ishaku Kwambula, he was my CRS teacher in secondary school. He was saying that he is amazed at how youngsters now pray. That you come to God, you are praying, you are shouting, God give me this. It's just like when you go to your father, you are going back to school, you go to your father with humility and say, Dad, we have resumed, we will be resuming next week. These are my needs. I pray that God will make a way that you provide these needs for me.
Are you likening that approach to criticizing the government?
Exactly.
You know, so are you saying if one sees anything that is wrong in the government, you know, he should humble himself, he should not be bold? Because earlier you say it takes courage and boldness to criticize the government.
Of course it takes courage, but you don't...
And we know how...
The fact that it takes courage and boldness to address power, you know,
the power that be.
Yes, that does not mean that you just be reckless. That is just the truth.
Yeah, but in this context, there was no recklessness.
When you are in, of course, there is none whatsoever. That is to tell you that there are people that, in fact, even if you will come crawling, they will not listen.
They will not listen. Okay.
That is the issue.
But shouldn't opposition in Nigeria,
even if you are shouting,
they will not listen.
They will listen. They will listen.
And they will take correction, or they will not listen.
Take corrections.
Okay.
And they will not make anything out of your shout.
Isn't the opposition a tool and a strong factor to shaping Nigeria's democracy? If opposition is not viewed as a factor to shaping Nigeria's democracy, then what future does Nigeria have when it comes to democracy?
I have some fears actually about the future of our democracy. But I just pray that we will learn lessons and then we will rally around ourselves, hold hands together and move this country forward.
Okay.
What we must know, this thing started from the beginning of this government in 2015. People that had the courage to voice out any wrong in the affairs of the government are pigeonholed. Haters, wailers, it has never been this bad. And these same people that are tagging people in the opposition now as haters and wailers were in the opposition, they were vulgar, you know, they were disrespectful, but they were carried along. Nobody tagged them.
Yes, sir.
No doubt, yes. Growing unemployment is something for us to, deal with in Nigeria. Nigeria is one, the world's poverty capital. Two, Nigeria's unemployment rate has quite risen, according to data from the NBS. The inflation rate in Nigeria is double digit. The GDP, gross domestic product, is something that has kind of declined. And you also accept the fact that foreign direct investment in Nigeria is also dwindling. And so the former Vice President, Atiku Abubakar, in his magnanimity, saw the need for him to also add his voice and also provide solutions to Nigeria's growing unemployment problem, as well as fixing the nation's economy, speaking not just as an opposition party member, but as a true Nigerian who has best intention is to see the nation move forward. How valid had these recommendations made concerning the economy in Nigeria? Well, let me leave you to take a look, and when we come back, we'll continue the program.
You're welcome on the show, and good to have you join us this morning.
After a very long time.
Well, I went to politics, so you see, it takes your time now.
All right, to that comment, the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has experienced about fears about some economic indices suggesting that the country is slipping into a failed state. How true is this?
Well, all the indicators are there. The leading indicators are there, the lagging indicators are there. And whether we accept it or not, we knew we will come to this level. Because when the government came into power, they came with no economic agenda. They only had a political agenda to remove the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, from power. That is it. But we knew the greatest opponent to them, it's not going to be the other political party. No, it's going to be the economy. And the economy has proved itself. Now they have made mess of it, so to say. Things were just going different ways. Now look at the issue of unemployment that we talk about. This is not the first time people have been talking about it. Not the Bloomberg report. No, before then, there was the World Bank report. There was the ease of doing business report, which is yearly and quarterly now, that has been indicating that the level of poverty in Nigeria is increasing. In fact, they predicted that there may not be middle class, so to say, in the next 5 to 10 years in Nigeria. So there will only be the super rich and the poor. And why there is no hope, there is no middle class. It is when there is hope, there is middle class. And you see that hope has been fading. What people can afford, or what people take for granted some years back, now they cannot do it. Look at the issue of balanced diet. How many middle class home can you now go and see that the average food served is a balanced diet? Things are getting harder. People are now grappling with the problem of paying their NEPA bill, their school fees, their health wise, and so many other issues. You are basically servicing the existing facilities you have. You are not adding facilities. How many of us last used a washing machine, for example, to wash their clothes? Because you cannot afford the electricity bill. How many of us can now drive their cars and get fuel at the easiest way and go to places they want to go?
And now, with all these compounding issues, not forgetting the fact that COVID-19 also contributed immensely to the relief, or should I say, the retrenchment of a lot of workers by various sectors of private companies. And with what we're seeing today, how does the future look like now?
You see, we're a country of excuses. We are always looking for one reason or another to clinch to it and say, this is it, this is it.
The reason
but actually on the ground, fundamentally, there was a problem before even COVID-19 came. Okay? The issue of poverty that we have been, and insecurity has been here before COVID-19. And we have been warned. Take care of your own people. Don't ignore your own masses, because there is a future implication for it. All this that is happening now is a product of neglect of people, when leaders go into office, all they care is about themselves. Or even this insecurity. If we had not ignored the masses for quite a long time, they will not be reacting the way they are reacting.
But some people will say the federal government has been issuing what is known as intervention funds, you know, to the poorest of the poor.
Yeah.
We have
the
market.
What is it called?
Market money.
Yeah, you know, aside the market money, we have the Empower. Aside the Empower, we have the COVID-19.
You see, that is it. When you want to treat economic issues in the political way, this is what you do.
Okay.
You cannot give capital to the hungry man. You give it to an investor. Because the investor will invest the capital while the hungry man will consume it.
And so what should be given to a hungry man?
Palliative. That's it. But don't give him capital. What they were trying to do with this trader money, with this Narsel money, and so on and so forth, they were giving them to the lower people, thinking that they will invest the money. 90% of all those people that benefit from Anchor Borrowers Fund, I knew, sold the product and consume it, and consume the money. They didn't invest it. They sell the chemicals, they sell the seed, they sell the pumping machine and everything. And at the end of the day, they buy.
Isn't that a mindset or poverty mentality?
You see, the question all over the world is that it's only the entrepreneur and the investor that turns the economy. The masses consume. So if you take a capital, because what they were trying to say, they were giving capital to people. At the end of the day, I knew the truck pushers in the market, the Meirua and so many people that were stopped along the road, and then they were asked to give their GSM numbers, they were snapped, and then the next 2-3 hours, they were given 10,000. That 10,000 was meant for them to invest. But because they are poor, their immediate needs is consumption. And you have to understand their psychology. And immediately they consume it. But imagine if you have given it to an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur. He's going to invest the money because he doesn't have the physiological needs in him has already been satisfied. But somebody with a physiological need that has not been satisfied, which is food, one of them will automatically go for food.
So are we saying the money did not really help people?
There was no way.
A lot of people will say thousands of houses have gotten the household COVID-19 palliative, which ranges from either 150 to 500,000. In fact, some even got 1 million. We also have another sector who have the 30,000 naira for the
and while there are those who have applied this thing over and over again, up to date, they've not got it.
So do we now look at it that it does not really, or it didn't help any of this in developing the economy?
They are the same class of people. I said these are people who have physiological needs not satisfied. They have not been able to satisfy their food requirement. So if you give them money, what they will continue to do is to eat those things they were not affording to eat before. They are not investors. A mindset of an investor or an entrepreneur is that he's going to create wealth because you have given him capital. But if you give it to a certain group of people, no matter the amount of money, it's going to go the same way the first money has gone.
All right, let's look at fair, level playing ground in the sense that, of course, the government cannot employ everybody. We know that. And before now, we've seen where a lot of private companies and investors coming from outside the country, which, of course, when they set up either a plant or an industry, it creates more employment for the youth, teeming youth in Nigeria. But the level playing ground I'm referring to here now is security. Without proper security, which is of course the prerequisite, to having an investor, are we likely to see this, come into fusion? Because it seems that the issue of security in Nigeria is getting out of hand.
Yes.
And the more it happens, the more people are unemployed.
And are we even ready to tackle the security properly? And I believe nobody will tackle the security problem because the rot has been deep and wide for quite some time. If you have a police force that have been recruited over the past 5 years, who have paid their way into the force, who are there to recoup their money, with that psychological mindset, this is what they came in. How are you going to reform them now and said for them to fight insecurity. We have been seeing places whereby it is the security men that connive with some criminals to kidnap. You can imagine the level a security man will fall down to connive with a criminal to commit a crime. He must have been, unfortunately, I don't want to use that word, a criminal too before you join the force. Now, if you say now you want to come on, you want to reform him, you want to orientate him, how long does it take you to do that? So we still have a very long way to go.
So how does that affect investment now? Because
the moment there is no security, you cannot invest. Okay, recently there was an attack in Garkida. They were there to construct roads and bridges and whatever for the town. Some guys came, ransacked the machineries, destroyed everything, and these guys left. Tell me, when are they going to come back?
And already, because the rules is that for every company that comes to town, a particular percentage of the youth of that area where the company is situated should be given a job. The issue is not the local youth. These are people that came from outside the community. Yeah, but they would need the local youth also to help.
Already the local youth were with them.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
So there's the local youth among the terrorists that will now guide them to town, not the ones that have not joined them. Most of them use some youths already. So, okay, you have your town, we want you to go to town. Okay, you are from this town, you are part of us. Let's go together with you.
Yeah. Also, on the issue of the advice from the former vice president, where he talked about the government must realize that the unprecedented insecurity in Nigeria facing the result of the unemployment. Do you think that the government has the capacity to create employment in Nigeria? Because when we're talking about insecurity, mostly it has run back to unemployment. Youths don't have anything to do. That is why they join all this, either banditry or Boko Haram or whatsoever. So do we see the government having the capacity to create job creations, more job creations today in Nigeria?
Okay, you say job, but let me tell you, government has not been creating job. What they have been successfully doing is putting people on payroll. It's a different thing.
Okay.
You can place somebody on a payroll and you claim that you have provided employment, but where is the work in the ministries? If you recruit 1,000 youths, for example, and you post into a particular ministry today, what work are they going to do? But you can say that you have successfully recruited them and placed them on payroll, increasing the government monthly salary. But the work is not there. So these are the two different things.
So how do we create, how would the government create the jobs?
Okay. First of all, jobs are created through creating an enabling environment for people to show their skill, to show their entrepreneurship, and create opportunities for other people to benefit. Take an example. If I want to set up a company, I'm going to recruit people. I need a very receptive working environment. For example now, look, I have a company. The moment I wake up, I expect to go to the filling station and buy fuel at a specific price that I have budgeted in January. But tell me, if I go to the filling station and I found out that the price of petrol has doubled, what does it tell me as an entrepreneur? It's a discouragement.
Yeah.
If I stayed in my office without making sales, then the tax people come and say, I must pay my tax or not, they close my company. Sure. Irrespective of how much I've invested. All they want is that tax. Is that a favorable environment? No. So unless those environment, that atmosphere has been created to make it friendly, to make it easy for entrepreneurs to invest their money and create jobs. This is what the government will do. But what the government has always been doing, both state, federal, and local government, is to get some 10,000 youths onto the payroll and say we have provided job for them. But job has one thing. The difference between a job and a prison is that while in a job, if you come, you produce something. You create this program. You are here doing something. You go back home knowing that you have done something. Not the pay. It doesn't matter. Not the food. Because the difference is that in prison, some people, the prisoner is paid. Is giving food, for example. And some of them that do one thing or another have money, but throughout the day, what do they do? So the question here, let me finish. The question here is that you should create a situation whereby when somebody goes to the ministry, he has something to do. whether with his hand or with his brain, and then he comes back. Not that you pay somebody on salary, when he goes to the ministry, there is no work, he sit under the tree, spend 8 hours, and come back home. You are demoralizing that person. You are not allowing him to develop mentally.
That's right.
Okay. At the end of the day, when he spent 35 years, what skill has he acquired? So people, this is what they want, not the money.
No productive engagement.
There is no productive engagement.
So government are not creating jobs.
No, they were just placing people on payroll.
But on, on the other hand, let's look at a system. Could it be based on, it's perennial, whereby we see Nigerians have placed so much premium on certificates. So when people graduate from school, all they need to do is to get a white-collar job, sit, and at the end of the month, they are paid without being productive. But if there were an entrepreneurial skill development before now, would you say Nigeria wouldn't have been, where it is now, the high rate of unemployment as credited to the former vice president?
Yes, but one thing I want people to realize is that we cannot go back now and say we want to change the whole orientation of people that has developed over the years. We just have to start somewhere.
That's right.
And as I'm telling you now, at this moment, the orientation is you go there, you sit down, you get paid. And I always tell people, if you are interested in only going to the office and get paid, you are not developing yourself. What do you do when you are 60 years old?
Getting your pension.
Is that pension? That's no pension.
And the pension is not even forthcoming regularly.
No, even if it is forthcoming, you cannot survive on fixed income in any economy in the world. Once your income is fixed, you cannot survive in any economy in the world. And pension is fixed income. Salary is fixed income. People need to be engaged in doing something that will give them incremental income on a daily basis.
All right, in this case or in this context, how do we revive our economy to say, yeah, we have a favorable and we have a nice economy that people can just dwell on?
One, we have to have a new orientation, a new mindset of developing entrepreneurs. We have to start from that. The lot of money you need, you have to give it to people who are entrepreneurs, and then you try to ease their way. And we are being helped almost on a daily basis by so many multilateral organizations. Look at the ease of doing business I have been talking about. It's a document produced by the World Bank on a quarterly basis now. Formerly it was on a yearly basis. They have been highlighting the areas you need to ease out, deregulate, so that people can come. One example is that, how long does it take you to apply for a land? In other countries, it takes you 7 days. In Nigeria, it takes you 7 years.
For a loan?
No, a land.
For a land.
For a land. You have an industry I want to set up, and I want to apply this land formally from the government.
But is that not same when it comes to applying for a loan to Nigeria?
Well, for a loan, it doesn't apply that way, because now the bankers follow you. Especially now that they have excess money, they try to follow you. The moment you indicate you want a loan, they follow you, because they know they depend on the interest income. But what I'm trying to say is those things, permit, for example, if you want a permit for one thing or another, which is directly from the government, it takes you years to get it.
Now, this level of unemployment, we've had we have redundant companies in Nigeria. For instance, the Ajaokuta Steel company, that every government comes and goes and talk about Ajaokuta Steel, that has a capacity to employ how many thousand Nigerians. And we have the Kaduna Textile that has been abandoned for a very long time. You can name them. So is it that the government now is lacking in critical thinking, no financial prowess to start up all this?
From the start, government has no business in business. That is why all those things you mentioned, these are businesses. And government has always failed in business.
Okay.
So they have failed. I will never encourage the government to say go and revive Ajaokuta or revive Kaduna Textile. The reason is that you privatize them, sell them all.
Okay.
So that they are not going to be a drain on
like the issue of the 1.5 billion US dollars on rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refineries, because former vice president also said it has not been yielding result, and yet we have the government still pumping money into that refinery.
It's a waste. It's a waste.
They should sell it.
Of course, this is it.
You also talk about reducing of tax. Will that also help in vamping back the economy?
I'm telling you, the average complaint of a small-scale industrialist, even here, is the multiple taxes.
Multiple taxes.
Pay state government, you pay federal, you pay local government, and there are various taxes. You pay fire service, you pay environmental, you pay registration of business premises, and so on and so forth. These are the pain of the problem most people complain about. Why are these taxes so much? And these are not taxes based on your productivity. No, they are fixed taxes.
They are fixed taxes.
You just pay. Where do you get the money to pay? So the next you pack out and go.
So aside the tax, lastly, we're running out of time. Aside the multiple taxation that the common SME, is undergoing, government doesn't have business in doing business.
Yes.
That's what you say.
Yes.
We used to have a national carrier. It is grounded. Talking about the Nigerian Airways. And the same way Nigerian Airways was grounded, we'll see the refineries too grounded. Another, prominent companies that have been grounded. Should there be an opener for private investors, to come buy this thing? You think that will solve the problem of high rate of unemployment in the country?
Of course, of course. First of all, try to be not a player in the game where you will be a referee. What we have been saying, government should not be a player in the national economy. It should be a referee. What we are trying to say is that it will better regulate, and it was going to save a lot of money. It's now pumping into this debt industries. And if you revive these companies today, I'm telling you, the next 10 years you will be talking of reviving them. Again. We have gone through that cycle. We have gone through the cycle, Kaduna Refinery, textile, and so on and so forth. We can't just go. They just have to leave it.
Thank you so very much for staying with me on Safiya Breakfast Show. Of course, it is the weekend edition of the Breakfast program, where we bring to you highlights of interviews that made our lineup during the week. And so if you missed out, your second chance to catch up for lost moment. Yes, during the week, we also spoke about Nigeria's growing unemployment, something that was x-rayed through the lenses of the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, a former governor of Lagos State, and at his colloquium, I'm talking about Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He spoke about some certain practical solutions to resolving Nigeria's growing unemployment. And Dr. Algo Sobami, a man who understands the digits and some of these particular data, was our guest on the program. And this is what he had to say.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, Abdullahi, how are you?
It's been a while on TV, actually.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've been running around trying to catch some upgrades here and there, doing some simple courses.
Very necessary to upgrade.
Learn a few tricks. Yeah. This younger generation are full of tricks. We have to catch up with them. I'm trying to catch up.
And you're fitting in well.
Even we, the younger generation, are struggling to catch up with some of the trends.
Yeah.
But speaking about catching up, obviously the comments of the national leader of APC has caught a lot of people unawares. I mean, it's forced a lot of people to put their thinking caps on, to even wonder what it would be like to have 50 million soldiers and police officers in this country. So we took the liberty of trying to understand, what the international standard is and who has perhaps one of the biggest armies in the world. And we realized that, of course, we're dealing with the most populated country in the world, and that is China, and they don't even have 3 million active military personnel put together. The whole entire world, globally put together, you have just a little over 20 million active military personnel. So it's safe to say that this idea is idiotic, on face value. But then again, we got some sort of, I don't know another message from the Tinubu camp to clarify that, saying that he never meant 50 million in the first place. He actually meant 50,000. But what do you make of, his ideology? Because he has always been a big government type of person, where government takes responsibility of everything. We saw how Lagos evolved, the whole government was bloated. But then again, people said Lagos can afford to do all of that because it generates a ton of money. The very idea that government can create thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs, running into millions possibly, what does that say about our attempt to address the unemployment crisis in this country?
Yeah, speaking to that, I would say we're trying to solve an old problem using the same old methods. I don't see any new method there. And someone said, I think it was Benjamin Franklin, that the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing in the same way, expecting different results. If we want different results, we have to think radically differently from the way we've been thinking and have been acting in government cycles and as a country. Even though the suggestion that Tinubu put forward is quite radical, but it's not that kind of radical suggestion. I mean, when I heard about it, I felt maybe some people want to discredit Tinubu and all that. So
maybe he didn't say it.
Yeah, maybe he didn't say it. I took my glasses. I had to do a research. I discovered that he actually said it. Even though now it's out in the news that he meant 50,000, 50 million. Oh man, that's you want to turn all Nigerian youths into soldiers.
You've solved the unemployment crisis.
Yeah, China has only 2.19 million soldiers. United States 1.3, Russia 1.4, India 1.4. Nigeria has only 120,000. And I need to speak to that. 200 million people faced with insurgency, banditry, had a farmer crisis, with the difficulties in the Niger Delta, even though it's quiet now, and also the Biafra situation and all that, all kinds of problems that we have, armed robbery, etc., etc. 120,000 soldiers is very, very low. So I agree with Tinubu that we need to up the numbers of our soldiers, but
including police officers.
I want to come to that. 50 million now, 50,000. Yes, I agree that we should raise the number of our soldiers. It seems like we're not serious in fighting insurgency and all that. We need a lot more soldiers. 120,000, they are overstretched. And that's why we're not getting the kind of results we need to get, because they are involved in situations all across the country. Soldiers have turned to police.
But experts will actually argue with you to tell you that it's not about numbers, it's about strategy deployed in fighting this insecurities.
Of course, and I agree. But we need to increase the number of our soldiers. It's a fact. It's not about... I'm not saying that the numbers by itself will solve the problem, but I'm saying it will help in solving the problem. The ratio of Nigerians to the number of soldiers we have is very low. The police also, we need to increase the number of our police forces, probably double it or triple the number we have, and that is that we back these recruitments with equipment. And condition of service, good condition of service, good remuneration, good housing, good healthcare schemes for the soldiers and the police and all that and the rest of it. So to that extent, I agree with Tinubu for 50,000, not 50 million. Now, coming back to the unemployment situation, we have a number of issues that we have to fix in Nigeria. Number one, the number of the youths that we graduate out of the university is pretty low compared to the number of the actual population, youth population in Nigeria, which means education is not reaching to a lot of our young people like it should reach to them. We need to do something about that. Number two, we need to do something about the quality of the education, because part of the reason why we have such a high unemployment figure, and we're number 2 in the world, second only to Namibia. And Namibia is just a step or two ahead of us. Who knows, by next year, if things continue like this, we may catch Namibia and overtake them. Now, the quality of education our young people receive is such that if there is no government job ready-made and waiting for them, they will be unemployed.
You're saying that most Nigerian youths are unemployable?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, basically. Especially given the modern economy. It's a knowledge-based economy, and it's centered around ICT. The skills to really function there is at the low in Nigeria. I know there are lots of young people who are doing great things as far as that is concerned. We need to have a lot more young people doing that all across the country. So we need a system of education that brings that from primary school all through to university. We also need to give our young people entrepreneurial skills so that they don't leave school and wait for a job. They leave school and create jobs.
Yeah, one of the, just to pick you up on, the modern technology, right? The tech ecosystems that we have in the country. Nigeria, when it comes to the African ranking for startups per country, the top 12, Nigeria has 714, tech startups in the country, which is, the top on the continent, is followed closely by Egypt with 578. Of course, obviously, it is a far cry from, the bigger picture, because, we're dealing with 33.3% unemployment rate, and that in itself, in a population of 200 million people, is quite staggering. And it's going to further, increase, going by the trajectory of things as it stands right now. When it comes to the private sector, for instance, right, what are we not doing to stimulate the right amount of growth? Because private sector-led job creation is much more sustainable than government guaranteeing that it can afford to absorb all the unemployed youth into the government fold, because that in itself is going to further increase our recurrent expenditure.
Given the current economic challenges and the uncertainty of the future, most established private sector companies are not employing people. Because when you employ people, you have to pay them, you have to take care of them, and all that. The bottom line for these companies is not as buoyant as it used to be, so they're careful with employments. Most of them, the banks and all that, most of them are really not doing employment. Which means we have to give our young people skills to come out and create jobs for themselves. And one of the things we need to do, there's a lot of wealth and a lot of possibility to absorb a lot of young people profitably in the value chain of agriculture, not just primary agriculture itself, which is what has been emphasized. Go to the farm, produce rice, produce yam, produce sorghum, produce, what is it called, soybeans, etc., etc. And that is good, but that's the primary level of agriculture. It's not as profitable as the value chain of agriculture. And there's a lot of jobs that can be created if we have the necessary infrastructure, to benefit from processing, for instance, of agricultural products, packaging, marketing, and all that. Those areas are not properly occupied, and there's a lot of money there. We need to put our young people into those places.
You're speaking to this very agricultural stuff you did talk about. We saw how this very administration came up with ideas surrounding the agricultural sector and making sure that youths are occupied in various sectors to reduce the number of unemployment, but yet we still see the number coming up high. What do you think is largely responsible for this numbers growing?
There's a lot of agricultural activity going on, like I said earlier, but it's a primary level,
So
get a land, cultivate rice and all that, just at that level. And those who buy the rice from the farmers and do the processing and the packaging and the marketing make a lot more money than the farmers themselves. So, and there is only so much that primary agriculture can take in terms of numbers. Already it's oversaturated, Majority of the workforce of Nigeria are involved in agriculture, but it's primary agriculture. And a lot of it is at the subsistence level. So we need to grow it and grow the business part of it you know, the value chain of agriculture. That's what needs to be done. That's what government needs to emphasize. Another thing we need to look at, which I don't think government is paying a lot of attention to, is fishery and livestock. We need a lot of protein, you know, and we don't get enough protein in Nigeria, so we have to import. It's the same thing with milk, fish protein, etc., etc. And there's a lot that can be done in that sector in terms of, you know, aquaculture, you know, but not much is being done by government. I know there are private individuals that are producing, that are rearing fish, but it's done just for business purposes. These joints, you know, come and buy maybe 10 pieces and all that, so they can roast it and people buy it and the rest of it. We can do a lot more as far as that is concerned. In Adamawa here, we can recharge some of the lakes that are dying. This festival that used to be very popular in Adamawa State is no longer there because the lake has dried up. It's what's the name of that? Njua. And some other lakes around the lower parts of the Benue in Adamawa State, in Numan local government, Jamsa local government. A lot of them have not dried up completely, but they are less than a quarter of what they used to be. We can recharge this and use modern technology to produce fish that will not only feed Adamawa State, but will feed Nigeria also with fish protein.
So it's a very beautiful idea. However, though, it appears to be a white elephant project in the sense that the resources is going to gulp is quite significant. How can we privately finance this type of endeavor? Because government would say there are so many competing demands, and at the moment there isn't a lot to go around into some of these projects.
Yeah, I know government always say there are competing demands, but for me personally, there's no demand better than uplifting the living standards of the people. Nigeria is borrowing a lot of money. It's if you look at the figures, you get frightened looking into the future, but it's not going into human capital development, it's going into infrastructure. And I keep asking myself, what do you need infrastructure for when the human capital is low? You know, and so when they say resources are not available, I feel disturbed when we're talking about taking care of human beings and you're saying resources are not available, but resources are available to build roads, resources are available to build rails and all that, but resources are not available to put into educational institutions so we can produce young people that are employable. Resources are not available to develop the value chain of agriculture so that our young people can go into there and help diversify our economy. Resources are not available to turn some of these lakes, you know, recharge them and then turn them into businesses, which in 5-10 years you get back the money you spend into doing it. We should look at this. I think a lot of times it's misplaced priority. So when we say resources are not available.
Could this be largely responsible for why we see a whole lot of youths involved in crime and criminality in the country?
Of course. It's a proven scientific fact that when people are unemployed, and there is a saying that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. I know some say it's a biblical quotation, but it's not. I do know that scripture speaks about if a man will not work, let him not eat. In other words, you have no right to the good things of life if you are lazy. However, the unemployment situation in Nigeria is not a function of laziness. Our young people want to work. The jobs are just not there. The jobs are just not there. So a government has to be creative. We keep speaking about government because there is so much the individual can do on his own. I mean, when we entered this year, speaking to young people, and I speak to young people every week, lots of them across Adamawa, Taraba, Gombe, and other places. I told them, I said, in addition to your certificate, get a practical skill that you can, it can be a plan B. Or it can sustain you while you're looking for a job. The educational, I said that because the educational system is mostly not given practical skills, even when the subject itself, like engineering, for instance, is practical. We have a lot of engineers that cannot do practical work because they attended schools that don't have the workshops. They don't have the facilities. So they know the theory, they can do the drawings and all that, but if it comes to hands-on approach to the work, they're really not there. And that's the educational system.
In Adamawa State here, I mean, obviously we're running short on time. In Adamawa State here, we have a new ministry that has been put together to explore, do some outside of the box thinking, so that we can stimulate a lot of private sector activity, especially at SME level, with the creation of the Ministry of Entrepreneurship. What do you want to see this particular ministry delve into so that we can explore all of the opportunities available for the youths in Adamawa State to explore? Because we also have witnessed a significant increase in our unemployment rate and poverty levels here in Adamawa State within the last 2 years. Mostly,
and MBC says we're one of the poorest states.
Exactly, and rightfully so, because there isn't a lot of economic activity, private economic activity here in the state. So what do you want to see in this direction?
The commissioner for that ministry mentioned entrepreneurship development is someone who is very committed, a humble person, and it's a young man himself. I've met him, we've spoken before, and all that. And they're doing a lot, I must say. But I think we need to do a lot more. When you're looking for ways to engage young people, I think you need to engage with the young people to find out from them the sort of things they can do. Just, you know, looking at it, I discovered that there's a lot going on that we can give technical skills to our young people, and they would be able to do it in a technical way and make a good living. For instance, lots of weddings, you need MCs, you know, and MCs, recognized MCs are making a good living, you know. I was talking with one MC, someone asked me to speak with him, I spoke with him, he said to me, if they are not giving him 150,000, he won't show up, you know. And so that's a skill that you can package a program to help young people develop it, public speaking, writing, etc., etc. So it does not have to be only around computers. It can be around music, you know. A lot of young people are interested in music and all that. We could package programs that will help them develop their musical skills, writing songs, producing music, stage presentation, etc., etc., so that we can compete with other young people around Nigeria and also make a good living from it. So what I'm saying is ICT is good. We're looking at ICT. We have programs that we've developed around that to help our young people, but not every young person will be there. Let's look at it generally, so we come up with programs that will keep them occupied and busy and satisfied.
Well, thank you so very much for the views also shared on that particular talking point. And this, of course, brings us to a close on the program today. I hope you've been able to make up for lost time. Mary Frank will be joining you with Sunday's review of Safiya Breakfast Show. That is other interviews that you missed out on, particularly for Thursday and Friday. Mary will be bringing all that for you on Easter Day, which is going to be tomorrow. But on behalf of those that have worked to make this a success, we would like to wish you a super Saturday and a happy Easter in advance. My name is Rawlins. Do enjoy the rest of our programming.